Listen, it goes without saying that no one's ever really read Jujutsu Kaisen. I had no need to read it because I'm the real-life Satoru Gojo, and there are maybe 4 other people who decided to, for some reason, actually pick up a book that Gege Akutami wrote. Nevertheless, it's an incredibly popular series with a lot of nuances that most people don't understand, so today, I've decided to put on my professional storytelling boots and tell you all about the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. At least up until where the manga is right now, so obviously there are manga spoilers ahead. If you're scared of those, don't click away. Spend some time with me. And before we begin, a lot of arcs in Jujutsu Kaisen are long enough and have enough information to make an entire video themselves. So if you want to see any of those, leave those in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this story format, maybe we can do other series. So let's get into it. We got a lot to cover. Starting with the Cursed Child arc. This is the JJK0 prequel to the actual story of Jujutsu Kaisen. Yuto, Kotsu, and Riko Orimoto are children who make a vow, lots of foreshadowing there, with one another, promising to get married when they're older. And guess what? This comes true in Rika's vision right before she dies, after she's hit by a car. Not exactly sure what kind of car hit her. It must have been fucking Bumblebee with a paintbrush, because that kind of blood splatter does not happen. Ever. Terrified of the results of the painting sentient car, Yuta is so depressed that he curses Rika and he turns her into a vengeful cursed spirit. Look what she looks like. Not super happy, not super pretty. Yuta unfortunately lives like this for a while until he realizes that the only way to get rid of the curse is to study under a hot teacher. Every pubescent boy's wish. And while at school, he makes friends with his new love interest, a panda, and even Maki. But guys, this isn't as happy a story as you think it might be, because hot teacher's best friend, hot bad guys, knows about Rika's power, and he wants to steal it, and even declares war on Jujutsu Society. This guy must have a master plan. It must be really good and well thought out. No doubt. The hot bad guy we realize is Geto, and he curses a bunch of people in Kyoto while confronting Yuta to steal his girl back in Tokyo. Unfortunately for Geto, he wasn't a master planner, and this fails, because Yuta is actually allergic to taking L's. He is not allowed to. It is in his contract. Even though Geto has so much more experience than him and has fought so many people in his life, it doesn't fucking matter. Yuta impresses the love of his life in his final fight, and finally lets her pass off into the afterlife. However, he does get to keep her, in Pokemon form this time. And that's where we end the prequel to Jujutsu Kaisen, and we get introduced to Yuto Kotsu. Next up, we've got the Fearsome Womb arc. The story shifts to follow Yuji Itadori, a super athletic chiller. One day, he ends up encountering Megumi Fushiguro, a sorcerer from Jujutsu High, looking for a finger. Little did these 2 boys know that one of them would end up being the GOAT, and the other one would be a brain-dead catatonic loser. Before these 2 become best buddies though, Yuji has some other friends, and their infinite genius allows them to unseal Ryomen Sukuna, a cursed user from 1,000 years ago, the strongest of all time perhaps. So Yuji and Megumi go try to save his friends from the curses that appear. Unfortunately, the curses are too powerful due to Suki's finger, and Yuji ends up eating one of the fingers in a very unsexy way. This leads to Yuji being the vessel for Sukuna, something Sukuna does not like because Yuji can actually contain him. Sukuna is too big a threat to be left alive though, so Yuji is set to be executed, but again, Hot Teacher comes in to save the day and says, "No, I will take care of you. I would win." Great, so Yuji doesn't have to be executed anymore. The boys are then introduced to Nobara Kugisaki, and I don't actually remember who this is, but I'm pretty sure she loses to a loser grade level curse that takes like a 5-year-old as a hostage. Yuji has to save the day. Again, don't know who this is. But cool, she becomes part of the main trio, as we call it. And then the kids with incredible showings of zero feats go to deal with an issue that might have to be resolved with a carpet bombing, a special grade curse. Surprise, surprise, they fucking lose, or flee, from a fingerer, another guy with Sukuna's finger. Thankfully though, the strongest sorcerer of all time is also a benevolent god, because Sukuna in his eternal kindness first saves Yuji from the finger, then spars with Megumi for a little bit, before killing Yuji again to save him from the pain of being alive. Thank you, Sukuna. He regrets that though, because he realized that Yuji has so much life to live, and he lets him off, for a price. At this point though, everyone else at the school, aside from Gojo and a couple other people, think that Yuji is dead, while Gojo goes up and beats Captain Magma. Also, some random bubs from Kyoto come to Tokyo Jujutsu High and try to deceive everyone into thinking that they're useless and or strong. It just doesn't work. And that about wraps up the first official arc of Jujutsu Kaisen. We move on then to the Versus Makito arc, where Makito, a past-work curse spirit, styles on some high schoolers by touching their faces and turning them into monstrosities. Meanwhile, some bullied kid that's watching a horror movie sees this body transformation and says, "You know what would be a good idea? Becoming friends with this guy." So that's exactly what this genius boy does. Meanwhile, Yuji is dispatched with Nanami, a super sexy Chad, a based lord, to go check out the transfigured high schoolers and follow the leads on any cursed spirits. At this point, things are getting hairy and Yuji has to step off, so Nanami follows Makito alone and beats him up. It's pretty sick, he even manages to protect his own soul. Meanwhile, Yuji chills with Junpei and his hot mother. Unfortunately, she dies very shortly after. Then there's a whole lot of irrelevant conversation, but ultimately Junpei is goaded into taking revenge, gets his own curse technique awakened from Makito's idol transfiguration, and he doesn't actually manage to take revenge, because he doesn't kill anyone that he thinks actually killed his mom. Instead, however, he does get to turn into Mike Wazowski with a neck and a fade for his last moments alive. Rip Junpei. Because it was Makito that did this, Yuji gets really triggered by this, and along with Nanami actually manages to beat up Makito. Pretty handily. Unfortunately though, Makito manages to escape. Not like he's gonna be a threat in the future, ain't that right, Yuji? And then we get to the Kyoto Goodwill Arc, perhaps everyone's favorite arc ever. Yuji is revealed to be alive to all of the students in the entire school, much to the Kyoto principal's dismay. In fact, he orders a hit on Yuji. Very based. He doesn't even want to do it himself. He sends other high schoolers to kill a high schooler. I mean, that's if you're gonna do it one way, you may as well do it that way. And then, a bunch of Kyoto versus Tokyo battles start, but none of them actually matter, except for Yuji versus Todo, who is a hunk, with a 530,000 IQ in the anime. This is incredibly important because Todo's incredibly powerful and strong, so Todo in his infinite delusion believes that Yuji is his bro and decides to take him under his wing. Meanwhile, the audience realizes that hot bad guy is actually alive after his fight with Yuto Kotsu, and he's leading evil curses who invade the school? They also come up with a genius plan to make Satoru Gojo stay away and out of the school. Then the strongest curse that invades, Flower Power, beats up some bums and then ultimately gets the 1-2 punch from the brother duo. And while all of this is happening, some other sorcerers and students manage to help Gojo weasel his way here, fuck some shit up, almost kill Hanami, and then he saved the day. Again, unfortunately though, Mahito manages to steal some artwork. This guy seems to be a little pest bugger fucker. We move on to the death painting arc, where the main trio are sent to go deal with a mystery under a bridge. How spooky that sounds. Megumi then has an existential crisis thinking about his comatose sister, and he remembers how he used to beat up middle schoolers. While the kids are having a jolly time away from Tokyo, Makito dispatches these artwork monsters that he stole from Jujutsu High. The main trio then fight 2 death paintings and a fingerer, and Megumi actually partially expands his domain, fooling us into thinking that he'll grow as a character. Meanwhile though, Yuji and Nobara actually do grow as characters and kill the curses. Nobara even hits a Black Flash. Not many people in the series hit a Black Flash. Unfortunately though for Nobara, this was her first and only good showing in the entire show. And it was a short arc, not too much happened, but I gotta say, for the end of season 1, the fights were dope, the music was dope, and it was a fun ending for the first season. Which brings us to season 2 of the anime, starting with Gojos Past arc, starting with also Aona Sumeka. Ima demo aon ga sundeiru. Full version at 200k subs. This arc takes us way back in time when Gojo and Geto are high schoolers and they make up the strongest duo and they are sent on a mission to deliver Riko Aminai, the star plasma vessel, to Tengen, an incredibly powerful and useful sorcerer in the Jujutsu world. This turns out to be a fucking lie. Unfortunately though, and they don't know this, a deadbeat loser is actually conspiring against them, and he sends a lot of enemies their way. They make quick work of everyone that stops them, including Paper Bag Man, Knife Guy, Old Guy that should have given up being a sorcerer, amongst others. The boys and girls then chill on the beach, because why wouldn't you after fucking up some adults as just teenagers, and then as they're delivering Riko to Tengen, Toji beefs with Gojo and completely murks the kid, almost killing him completely. Geto already took Riko away to bring her to Tengen, but he asks her at the end, "Do you really want to die?" She says no, and then she gets fucking shot in the head. Incredible scene, I gotta say. Toji, the deadbeat loser, then actually also traumatizes Geto. But then he takes some honorable back shots. Rest in peace, Toji. And as we know, once you're traumatized by a homeless loser, there's only one thing you can do. Commit genocide. So that's what Geto decides to do. Moving on to Shibuya, which is probably the longest arc in the series. We could make an entire video on this, so let's just hit the most important points. It starts with the realization that Mekamaru, a Kyoto student of fucking course, was feeding information to the bad guys in hopes of getting some. Did he get some? No. He did in fact not get any. Due to the information from the mole, the bad guys ruin a perfectly good Halloween and Gojo's gotta get in there and save the day. Gojo no-diffs everyone there, including the cursed spirits and including the bystanders who go completely catatonic after he uses Infinite Void. Nice job, Gojo. Exactly what you should have done. He's too good a person. He could have killed all the cursed spirits there, but no, he decided to go for the transfigured humans. Just wasn't a good call. And after some heavy breathing and sexy edits, Gojo realizes that Geto, his best friend, isn't even Geto, but is actually Kenjaku, who seals Gojo away in a convenient ass pool. Because 3 minutes has to pass only in your mind. Or something. Gojo is then sealed in the prison realm. Oh fuck! Everyone says in unison, as they scramble to free the man who put Jujutsu Society on his back alone. But as we know from the anime, this doesn't work, because Evil Mario is actually a pretty tough opponent. Octodad would have killed everyone had Zombie Deadbeat not come back. Yuji loses to his own brother, not Todo. Sukuna incarnates and fights Mahoraga while killing most of Shibuya, and then Nobara and Nanami finally die. especially Nobara. And Yuji is distraught. He feels like he's the reason for a lot of this. He is Sukuna's vessel after all, but thankfully Todo, his brother, shows up and he helps Yuji lift his spirits and defeat Makito once and for all. But they don't actually do that because Kenjaku is a kill stealer. Kenjaku then uses Makito to awaken random shit from 1,000 years ago. I wrote 100, but I'm not gonna change it. And then everyone is sad. But Yuki is there, and that's cool. The Shibuya incident really shapes Jujutsu society in a big way. What happens next? I'm glad you asked. We get to the Itadori extermination arc, where we welcome back Yuta Okotsu as Yuji's designated executioner. No reader actually believes this for a singular second. We're then treated to a little scuffle between Yuji, Yuta, Choso, and Naoya, where Naoya loses to Choso. Yuji loses to Yuta, but then, again, who doesn't? And then Yuji dies, but not really. For the second time in the show, so... nice creativity, Gege. And the arc ends with Megumi asking for Yuji's help, of fucking course, why would he do anything himself? And the Culling game is introduced. The Culling game as an idea and as an arc has enough information for an entire video itself, so we're just gonna keep this brief. Moving on to the perfect preparation arc, which is perfectly preparing us for the Culling game's long and drawn out nature. It starts with Yuji, Yuta, Megumi, and Choso meeting up with Maki and Yuki, going back to Jujutsu High to meet with Tengen and stop the Culling game. Unfortunately though, Tengen's barriers make it really difficult to navigate. Said no one ever. They instantly fucking find her. They talk for a while about the prison realm and the Culling game, and then the team splits up and they do their own prep work, including Choso and Yuki staying to guard Tengen. And then we've got the fact that Yaga dies. Even pandas cry. But not a single reader did. And then Maki goes home to a very warm welcome, where her father says, "Maki, I hate you, kill yourself." And then Mai sacrifices her soul for Maki, because twins in Jujutsu Society are basically one and the same, and urges her to pull an Itachi, which is exactly what she does. Maki kills the entire Zenin clan. Fucking easily, because she's Toji 2.0, if not even stronger. And while other people are doing useful things, Megumi and Yuji join an underground fight club to recruit a different gambling degenerate, named Hikari. Oh boy do I love Hikari, haha. After a series of fights, they of course manage to do so, and as you can see by this panel, it seems like Hikari is taking no damage from this Yuji headbutt. It's because he's a moron and has no brain. And to end off the perfect preparation arc with a bang, the squad learns of a certain farmer killer from the Edo period. I'm sure he's gonna be pretty useful. And then finally we get to the Culling game arc. A lot of people have split opinions about this. It's really long, so again, it can't be its own video, but let's get right into it. So it turns out that Kenjaku didn't just incarnate past sorcerers, he also made regular people awaken. I hope that those that are awakened are stronger than fucking Junpei, especially if we want them on our team. Yuji and Megumi are then designated to go find Higuruma because he has a lot of points, but not before fighting some random fodder to lengthen the arc. Yuji then ends up finding him and engages in a battle with the law, and ends up beating him because he's a good person. So that was Yuji's side of things. If he found Higuruma, what could Megumi possibly have been doing? Well, Megumi meanwhile fights some suspiciously dressed people before being bailed out by a half-naked comedian, because he couldn't deal with them himself. The leader of these people and the person that Megumi ultimately fights is Reggie, who he narrowly beats. How does this affect Reggie's legacy? Losing to Megumi. I'm just kidding, Megumi, man, I love you. Just fucking lock in. You're letting all of your friends die right now! Who have we not talked about in a while? Who's Gege's favorite character after Sukuna? Yuta, of course, and meanwhile he engages in a battle royale in Sendai Colony. And he ends up fighting against a hot naked woman, a dude with nice hair, an old guy, and a roach. And we could describe this in more detail, this battle royale, but what do you expect to happen? It's fucking Yuta. Come on, man. Then another meanwhile, Hikari fights some random bum, and I'm not even talking about Kashimo. It's a mangaka loser, dude. Everyone forgot about this shit. And we're not talking about Kashimo because Kashimo is busy beating up on a stuffed bear. And only then Hikari joins. And let me just say, the fight is fun. It has a lot of good stuff. But if we were to push an agenda, I would say something along the lines of Kashimo is a demented old man who for some reason believes he was the strongest in his own period. And Hikari is a Stallfest character who doesn't actually ever contribute to the group. Anyway, those two become buddies. A match made in heaven. And then another meanwhile, we jump to Maki and Kamo as they fight the vengeful cursed spirit of a woman hater, who ends up dying to a woman. Again. Fucking loser. And now is the perfect time to mention this. Some random American/military stuff happens, but it's never really expanded upon in the manga, or maybe Gege forgets, so we're just gonna pretend it never happens. Poof! Let's continue with the Culling game. Kenjaku finally pulls up to take Tengen just like we knew he would, but our favorite bodyguard couple says no. And the fight is really cool, and watching the lovebirds fight and struggle is awesome because they're really strong and cool characters. Unfortunately though, not only is Kenjaku a primary antagonist, he's also a man. So unfortunately, Yuki dies, and Choso manages to escape alive. And as the spoils of war go to the victor, Kenjaku manages to take Tengen. Not that I would ever consider that bum a spoil of war. And then finally our split up group reconvenes, but then we realize that Megumi's sister, who they were trying to save this entire time, is actually an incarnated sorcerer from the Heian era. Oh my god, mental damage. Foreshadowing Megumi mental damage. One of many. Then what I believe is the greatest twist in the manga happens, and Suki takes Megumi's body while also freeing himself of Yuji's body as his cage. And to wrap up the Culling Games arc, the squad tries to fight Sukuna, but he's still very powerful and he manages to escape, and then he takes a bath and ends up killing Megumi's sister, along with this incarnated sorcerer Yorozu, and the group manages to free Gojo from the prison realm, who immediately comes in contact with Kenjaku and Sukuna, and he kills them all, right there. Ba-bang! It's over. I love... Jujutsu Kaisen was my favorite manga. Psych. That didn't happen. In fact, Shinjuku Showdown happened. Let's see what happens. Haha. The reason Gojo didn't want to kill them right there is because he had some preparation to do. Didn't want to kill Kenjaku on a different day than Geto. So let's see what happens indeed. Gojo and Suki are finally going to face off, after a month of Sukuna preparing and Gojo jerking it. Meimei pay-per-views the entire thing to Jujutsu Society, and the fight is grand, on a bigger scale than any JJK fight, and man was it fun to read. And let me tell you, Gojo largely dominates the fight. Reread to see it. I'm not even being a homer, that's just kinda how it was. But Sukuna does use his father to gain the upper hand and uses the world-cutting dismantle. And I will say, Sukuna as a battle IQ fighter is probably just higher than Gojo. It very much seems to me like Gojo was naturally a better sorcerer, and Sukuna had much more experience and was more tactical. He knew how to go about it better. And on that faithful day, it was a sad day for fans everywhere, as Sukuna manages to steal his father's answers and kills Gojo. Rest in peace. But he'll be back, don't worry. And after the death of Satoru Gojo, Yuta manages to bush camp Kenjaku and ends up killing him after a yap fest with the comedian that saved Megumi. Because Yuta needs a dub in every single arc. Come on, come on. And then Sukuna runs a legendary gauntlet featuring none other than Kashimo, who became a meme because he did fucking nothing after being hyped for so many months. Higuruma, Yuji, Maki, Yuta, Kusakabe, Miguel, Raru. It was generational. Sukuna is that guy when it comes to sorcerers. But you know who else is that guy? Yuji, because he never fucking gets down. And we end up learning that Yuji is actually Sukuna's fucking nephew, and his uncle's been mean to him this entire series. Now we want to root for him even more. Sukuna's scared of Yuji. He knows what latent power he holds. And it was a legendary run from Sukuna, as he was completely dismantling everyone. But then, Yuta comes back in Gojo's body, and ironically splits the JJK community in half, as he is not as big a Gary Stew as we thought. Or maybe he is exactly that. Because if he ends up living this, I will be fucking livid. Oh yeah, by the way, Toto reappeared. He hasn't been in the series since Makito, but yo, Yuta's back, let's go! He stole Gojo's body, yo, fuck Toto! And mark my words, Sukuna is gonna get cooked after Yuta and Toto die. By Yuji. And then the final arc of JJK, maybe, is the merger arc. As Sukuna starts the merger for shits and giggles, and he could do this without killing everyone because he said so. Probably a binding vow that he made in the Heian era. We can retcon that, Gege. I mean, pretty easy. And then finally, Gojo comes back in his own body and he one-taps the merger, saving Jujutsu Society one for all. But then the biggest twist of all happens, where Sukuna smiles, grabs Yuji, tells him this was all just to build character. I'm preparing you for something much worse than Jujutsu Society. Corporate Japan and the workforce. He tells Yuji that he's special, and that's the end of Jujutsu Kaisen. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. So to those of you who have never read the manga, which should be about 99.5%, how'd I do? What'd I miss? What'd you think of this excellent explanation of Jujutsu Kaisen? And the end that we don't know yet that'll happen. Again, if you enjoyed this type of content, please let me know down below. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know in the comments down below as well. Any series, games, characters, anything to cover with you. You are incredible and beautiful. Fuck Sukuna. Fuck Yuta. I will die on that hill. I love you though. Goodbye.